1974.
There we go. We are live.
What?
Now, let me get the link, put it on Twitter, and share it out.
Starring Inferno. Starring Steve McQueen.
Starring
There's
everybody. Freaking
what?
everybody is in that game. That movie.
Oh yeah. There's another Steve McQueen who is alive, and he's a director. And every time I hear his name, I'm like, Steve McQueen's dead.
I'm surprised they didn't make him change his name with the guild and everything.
I guess because he's a director.
Yeah.
Steve McQueen, director. Yeah, he's done a bunch of indie films. Oh, he directed 12 Years a Slave, though. Look at those images.
Yeah, no. I tried to do this first, but I can't get the link until I turn it on. There we go. That should be better. Are we still live?
We are, as far as I can tell.
Okay, good. I did a weird little
I see
account
the
switch,
Discord.
so I wanted to make sure it would work. What do you see?
I see your Discord app.
Oh, yeah. Not anymore, though. Hopefully.
Crazy that it's like 30 seconds or even more behind.
Yeah, it's a fairly significant delay. Um, I don't know if I can do anything about that.
Not a huge deal. It's just interesting.
I haven't seen any options to stop the delay, but we can look into it. All right. So I guess for the intro, I'm gonna do a fake radio in and request a flyby, and you can say negative Ghost Rider. The pattern is full, and then I'll go and you can add in then a jet flying by and you spilling your coffee, and you can swear or something.
Son of a bitch.
Other than that, I guess I'm ready. I did
All
add
right.
best line to the fold.
Got it.
Since we only had 3, I wanted one more in there. If you wanted, we could switch that out for like best or favorite call sign or something like that.
I found one.
Okay, good.
It was pretty easy.
There's a lot of lines, so.
Yeah, for sure. I'm recording. Boop, boop, boop. Are you recording?
I am, but I'll double check it. Yep. I'm recording
All
now.
right. Double check.
I'm glad we double checked.
Oh, I just saved your life.
I think I would have checked it, but I can't confirm that. Got the sounds
Okay.
set up a little bit different today. Hopefully, it'll come out better. We'll have to wait and see.
All right. Do a
Oh, one of my gifts says makeagift.com on it. Oh well.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Sync. 1, 2, 3.
Boop. I feel like I have to make a poop face every time I do that.
It's required.
You know, like the face the dog makes when he goes to poop. That.
Like they're guilty of something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's get it on.
Let's do it.
Yeah. This is gonna go well.
Good.
Welcome to the CinemaMen podcast. I'm your host, John Murphy, and I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Hurdle.
This is Matt Hurdle the Tower. Matt Hurdle the Tower.
This is Tower. Go ahead.
This is Matt requesting a flyby. Repeat, requesting a flyby. Over.
Negative. The pattern is full. The pattern is full. Oh, God. Go candy a yam, you two-faced spit licker.
What was that?
I said, go candy a yam, you two-faced spit licker.
You lint liquor. To throw back that commercial for anyone who remembers it.
I found do you remember the Biden insult bot on Twitter?
I don't remember it, no.
That was a Biden insult.
I like it.
On tonight's episode, we are reviewing the 1986 action film Top Gun, starring Tom Cruise and Kelly McGillis, directed by Tony Scott.
Good old Tony Scott.
Yes. This is a spoiler podcast, so if you've never seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, pause this episode, go watch the movie, then come back. Stay tuned until the end of the episode where we reveal what our next movie will be so you can follow along with us. If you want to get in touch with us or give us your take on a movie, email us at feedback@cinemamenpodcast.com or check us out on Twitter at twitter.com/cinemamenpod. I think do we still have that giveaway going, Matt?
We do. We still have a giveaway going. We should be getting near to the end of it about the time this podcast comes out. So we'll probably stop doing announcements after this podcast. For those of you who aren't aware, we are currently giving away a Rocky Blu-ray movie set. It covers all of the movies from Rocky 1 through Rocky Balboa on Blu-ray, 1080p, not 4K, unfortunately. But it's free to you, and all you have to do to enter that contest is to get onto our Twitter. You will find a pinned tweet there. Retweet that tweet and give us a follow, and you'll be entered in. We will be releasing the winner for that soon, and we will contact you via Twitter. So be on the lookout for that. We'll probably, as of this podcast airing, we will close the entries, and we will announce the winner in our next Cinemini. How about that?
Sounds good.
Oh, well, no, actually, no, we
Well,
can't do that because we record these back to back. We will
our
announce
next.
the winner on our next movie review.
There we go.
There we go. So
Sounds good.
hopefully somebody's not listening and decided to stop right when we said that, because it's going to be the movie review, not the Cinemini.
That's right. We've got a few entries, and hopefully we'll get a few more. Make it interesting. If you would like to support us monetarily and have the means to do so, you can go to anchor.fm/CinemaMen podcast/support. We use the money to improve the quality of the podcast. So in advance, thank you very much. And we can do more giveaways if we get more support.
One thing I do want to add, because of the delay between us recording these podcasts and when they are released, the announcement will be made instead of on the episode officially. It will have to be made via Twitter and our social media channels. This is because we want to close the contest after this episode airs officially as a podcast. We'll record the next episode before that happens. So, again, sorry for the confusion, but we will let you know if you win, I promise.
Yeah. And we will announce it on the podcast at some point.
Yes, but it will probably be way after it's over due to our scheduling.
If you like video, we offer that too. We are live right now, and you can go to youtube.com and search for the CinemaMen podcast. We go live every other Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, but the easiest way to track all that is to subscribe to our channel, and we'd really appreciate it.
That's right. If you're subscribed, and then whenever you just open up YouTube, you should see us on the left in those links over there for live channels, and then you can just click and be there.
Yep. And one more thing, as Matt mentioned, we have a short form series that we release every other week called the Cineminis, and it's a 30-minute or less episode where we talk about random stuff, usually movie stuff. We just released one where we talk about our first movie-going experiences, so check that out if you'd like. All right, let's get started with this movie, Top Gun.
I feel the need, John.
The need for
to review this movie.
Makes sense. That's what we're here for. All right, the plot synopsis from imdb.com.
Give us that plot synopsis.
I'll plop it down on you. As students at the United States Navy's elite fighter weapons school compete to be the best in the class, one daring young pilot learns a few things from a civilian instructor that are not taught in the classroom. Brown chicken.
That's a kind of confusing
Sounds like a porn
summary, doesn't it? Yeah, it's a little hard to follow too.
It's a little suggestive.
Yeah, not the best synopsis. I mean, I guess it gets to the point, but I don't like it.
All right. I think last time we did a breakdown of categories instead of doing our hot takes and all that. I think that worked out pretty well. What do you think?
I agree. I like it.
Right.
It gets us talking more, and that's less boring for everybody, I think. So
Yeah, so
let's do it.
we're going to do it again. So the categories that we kind of broke the movie down into are the ones that make the most sense. So we have acting, plot, art direction, and cinematography. visual effects, score, and then action, because this is an action movie. And then anything that doesn't make sense under those categories, we label miscellaneous. So, acting. Matt, was this Oscar award winning acting?
You know, it was not.
How dare you?
In general, I'm going to say that the acting was good. I say this a lot, it seems like. It wasn't outstanding, but it was good. There were a few areas, I think, where the acting was just bad, but those were usually limited to some short scenes or line deliveries in one place or another. And it wasn't so bad that I want to say that the acting was bad or even average, because it was good for the most part.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
the in my opinion, the actor that I had the most issue with in this movie was none other than the great Tom Cruise himself.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, he had a few scenes in particular that seemed really forced to me. The most blaring one I can think of is the scene where he is with Goose and Charlie and Carol, sorry, and their child in a diner, and they're just kind of hanging out, having fun. And Goose is playing Great Balls of Fire on the piano. It's a very famous scene. Um,
Sure.
and thankfully, Meg Ryan and Goose are there. I'm struggling to recall the actor who's playing Goose. Help me, please.
Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards and Meg Ryan are there because they saved that scene. Kelly McGinnis helps as well. Tom Cruise, not so great. He goes up and he's like, excuse me, I'm going to go embarrass myself with Goose. And he walks up to the piano, and it's awkward. Like, he's trying to sing and he's trying to be happy, and he's like messing with the kid and kind of tugging on his leg, and it just looks so forced and fake to me that I struggled with it.
Would you
Um,
say he embarrassed himself?
yeah, but in a more meta sense than I think he meant to. You know, I came to a conclusion in this film in particular, because I can't say this across the board, but in this movie, Tom Cruise really excels at the dramatic, the serious, and the action side of this movie, which thankfully is most of it. He falls flat when it comes to being endearing or joyous or frivolous, however you want to say it. He falls flat in every one of those scenes to me, with the exception of the end scene where he's just hugging people and being real happy. He did fine there. It was kind of interesting. I've never noticed that before until this watch through. Aside
Hmm.
from that, though, yeah, I thought everybody else did great. Val Kilmer was amazing as Iceman. Kelly McGinnis was great as Charlie. Anthony Edwards as Goose, great. Yeah.
Okay. Um, I I didn't feel that way about Tom Cruise. I think he definitely looked like he was novice, because this is like his eighth movie ever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he looks young, like he looks inexperienced. And that's kind of where I took a lot of the problems I had with the movie as far as his acting was him just not knowing how to deliver those lines. Um, but the reason you go to see Top Gun is for Tom Cruise, and I think he does pull off that draw. Like I mean, he's attractive. What can I say? He's attractive. He's charismatic. A little stalkery. When it's viewed through the 2021 lens. Um,
So give me an example. Like, how did he feel stalkery? I agree with you, but I'd like to
okay.
hear how you think he was.
just just how he initially approached Charlie, who is Kelly McGillis's character. He basically didn't back down. He went into the women's bathroom and started talking to her after she blew him off. He was very forceful. Now, having watched this movie before, I know that her character is not. She's a more strong female character. She has a position in the military, so she probably knows how to handle guys like that. Um, but from the initial scenes, you have no idea who she is,
Right.
and it really comes off off putting. But it was the '80s. I mean, that's just kind of how movies were made back then. It was not given a second thought about those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. He's got a couple looks too. He gives at different points that just don't sit right. A
Yeah,
little creep on him.
Tom Cruise's smile is divisive at best. Like sometimes it's portrayed as just a normal smile, and then sometimes it's crazy. It's a crazy smile, sort of like a Jack Nicholson kind of thing.
Yeah, I can see
Um,
that.
yeah. Uh, the rest, I agree with you. The rest of the cast was pretty good. Um, Val Kilmer, he wasn't really in the movie a whole lot,
Hmm.
compared to like Kelly McGillis or even Tom Skerritt. And but the rest did good. Michael Ironside was awesome. Um, the guy that played what's his name?
You have to give me a little more info than that.
James Tolkien, who played Stinger.
Mm.
He was in Back to the Future. He is an actor, a character actor that doesn't get a lot of credit. But he's been in a lot of things. He's actually been he was in another movie we watched. I can't remember what it is at the moment, but we recently watched a movie for the CinemaMen podcast, and he was in it.
Hmm.
Anthony Edwards brings a lot of humor and comedy to the film, and I think that's a good thing.
In a lot of
If it
ways,
wasn't for
and I'm gonna go with you here. I think in a lot of ways, Anthony Edwards saved a lot of this film.
the movie, would be much more stuffy if he wasn't in it, for sure. I do agree with that.
He is the
Uh,
much needed comedy element in this film.
hmm Kelly McGillis, I thought she did good. She played a good, strong female lead. Um, she wasn't going to take any of Tom Cruise's crap, at least at first.
Hmm.
And the tension, that's what I wanted to bring up. The tension between Tom Cruise and McGillis was intense. Like this whole like cat and mouse game that they kept playing, it was almost as tense as the action, from my perspective.
Do
Um,
let me ask you the question that everyone's wondering right now.
okay,
Do you think they did it?
totes.
You think so? I could see
They
it.
totes. They totes did it.
They might not have though, and just really wanted to, because you're right. That tension was thick. So they
Yeah,
definitely did that well.
yeah, for sure. Um, so acting, I think we would say fair to middling, decent,
Yeah.
not exceptional. But it's not that I wanted to mention this too, but this is not the kind of movie where acting is necessarily a requisite, or great acting is a requisite.
Yeah, for sure. And this is one of those movies too where it's kind of confusing. This movie falls somewhere in between a drama and an action flick, and it's kind of hard to separate those two genres in this circumstance.
Mm.
The best parts are all action, but there's no shortage of drama.
Yeah, yeah. I like how they did that. It wasn't just all dogfighting and military stuff. There was that side element of this romantic angle or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that I like that about it. And that brings us, I guess, to the plot.
The plot.
So the plot is fairly thin. I mean, there's not a lot of twists or turns in it.
It's kind of like a thin red
Um,
line.
yeah, different movie though.
I'll tell you this much:
Uh,
this
yeah,
movie features a few good men.
I guess you could.
Have a cocktail
I I got nothing.
while you're reading your Minority Report. Sorry. I know Tom Cruise is in the Thin Red Line. I know that. I just wanted to
Yeah.
throw it out there.
Um. So we have a guy who wants to be the best airman
That
ever.
no one ever was.
Yep. He joins this top-notch flight school that only trains the best, the top 1%.
The best of the
Um,
best.
the best of the best. They mentioned that many times. They must love that movie. Uh, he has an issue in his past. He falls in love with a girl. He overcomes another issue that happens in the present day. And the only twist, really, I guess, is that he didn't win the day. Like wasn't, he didn't win. He wasn't the top in his class.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
You say he came in and he had an issue in his past. I
Correct.
I missed that apparently. What was this issue? Like I knew he there was some controversy around his father and who his father
Mm-hmm.
was and what happened there, but I didn't catch any
Mm-hmm.
issues that he had personally other than he was known as being a maverick.
Well, that was the issue, I guess, is that
Oh,
he
okay.
was. Goose mentions, he's like, you're always trying to you're always struggling with this because of what happened to your dad, and presumably that's the reason he is so gung ho and wants to be the best because his dad was one of the best, but there was a rumor that he messed up his last mission
Hmm.
or he screwed up, and that was his last that his like sign off. I messed up,
Yeah, basically he
and
went off flying and disappeared, and what happened was classified. But yeah, the rumor
yeah,
was that he screwed up, but nobody knows for sure, including Maverick, his own son.
yeah, and I mean, so that's the overall plot. Really, where you get into the meat and potatoes is with the action and and Tom Cruise and all that stuff. But what did you think of the plot? Do you think it was decent?
Um, so I agree with you in that the plot was kind of thin. However, I have to give this movie some points because if you think back to famous military films, especially films around the 80s and 90s, those films all kind of revolve around a specific occurrence, right? Now that occurrence might be as broad as an entire war, as limited as a battle, or a famous occurrence that happened at some point that people heard about on the news and they're exploring things like that.
Hmm.
In this case, that's not really what's going on. The vast majority of this is just pilots training in a school. I think that's an interesting way to take this. It's an action movie, but you also have to consider this a military movie because it's all in fighter planes for the Air Force, right?
Right.
So I want to give the film some points for making such an interesting and exciting and fun to watch movie out of really what's kind of a mundane thing, flight school for really good pilots. Now, there's a
Yeah.
little bit of conflict in there. You've got at the beginning of the movie and at the end of the movie, there's a conflict with it's Russia, I believe, right?
I don't think they ever really say. They always call him the enemy.
Yeah.
I don't.
I mean, so they kind of leave who it's with to assumptions. I think everyone assumes it's Russia.
Because
We
it
know
was
that
the
they're
80s.
flying these MiG planes, but
Yeah.
we don't necessarily know exactly who the country is. So there's a little conflict, but for the most part, not really. It's just pilots competing against each other.
Yeah. That's a good point. I put a lot of that type of stuff actually in the other categories because it was more centered around the art direction, the setting, the set design, and all that stuff. But I agree with you that that was a it's an interesting setting and an interesting way to take a movie of that nature. And they do kind of frame it around. I don't know if Top Gun is even real, but they they open the movie with this paragraph that talks about um, airmen in the 1960s, and then they formed this Top Gun school, um, and that's kind of where, well, that is where the entire movie takes place, is at this Top Gun flight school.
Yeah, with the exception of the beginning and the end, it's all there.
Yeah.
So another thing about the plot I wanted to
Okay.
discuss with you, that's the romance between Maverick and Charlie.
Hmm.
To me, that whole thing felt a little weird to me, and it wasn't just Tom Cruise being creepy, right? It just felt like there wasn't a lot of build up to the relationship. It was, he sees her at a bar. He does the goofy, "You've lost that love and feeling" with Goose, and he,
Yeah.
talks to her, finds out he's an instructor, or she's an instructor, and then convinces her to go on a date with him, and they go on a date, and then they're in love. It was
Yep.
kind of like, I don't know. It went a little too quick for me. It didn't feel natural, I guess.
Yeah. Usually, so love at first sight is not a uncommon thing in movies, especially in the 80s and 90s. But what they did with this movie is they acted like that she did not want to be with him, and she was uh playing hard to get, I guess. And he was being creepy. And then you find out that she's part of the military, and then she finds out that he did the 4G upside down maneuver with the MiG plane. So now she's really interested in him because of that, I guess. Uh, and yeah, I think it does go a little quickly for that kind of approach. Like if immediately they were both simpatico and they both wanted to be with each other, that's more of like a movie love magic kind of thing. But
Simpatico.
yeah,
All right.
there you go. Um, but they played it as if it was like hard to get, a cat and mouse game, but it was really too quick for them to find that
Mm-hmm.
because they weren't around each other hardly,
Yes,
or
maybe
at
maybe
least
that was a lot of it. Like they just don't have a lot of screen time together, and then all of a sudden they love each other.
yeah. And then you've got Tom Cruise. She says, "Meet me at this house at 4:30." He goes and plays beach volleyball with his buddies in his jeans, and then he immediately goes to her house, and he's sweating all over the place, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Can I take a shower?"
And she says no.
No.
Makes him sit through dinner all nasty.
Yeah. But then, so I think that was the point where he was like, he was all anxious. He was wanting to be with her. They talk for a little bit, and then he's like, "I got to take a shower," and he leaves.
Yeah, you think he's gonna go use her shower, but no, he just gets on his bike and goes. You're like,
And that's this kind
okay.
of tension that I'm talking about, is like you have expectations because you've seen movies before, and they completely subvert the expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And they draw out this interaction, which it was good. It was just a little like, this makes no sense, a little bit.
Yeah. So here's something else on the plot.
Okay.
I want to talk about the death of Goose because
Well,
I feel like that was handled a little bit awkwardly.
okay.
So first of all, I don't remember them ever actually explaining the cause of Goose's death. Do they do that in the movie and I just missed it?
No, I think
Okay.
the assumption is that he was shot out of his plane so fast that he broke his neck or something,
Yeah,
but he was also bleeding.
he was
So maybe
ejected
he,
into the canopy and that's what killed him, right?
yeah,
But the movie never actually tells you that. So
correct.
if you're not watching, it's a little confusing. And in fact, I remember watching this when I was younger and not understanding that at all. Because you see both of them eject, and then you see both of them parachute down, and then it's just like Goose is bleeding and dying, and Tom Cruise is fine. And I remember as a kid watching this, not understanding what the heck happened, and then the movie never told me. Now I'm
Mhm.
older; it's easier to figure that out. But if you're
Yeah,
not paying a lot of attention, it's a little confusing.
yeah. I I don't want to bleed into the next category, but a lot of the aerial stuff in general is very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because of the speed and the similarities between the planes and all that stuff and the weird wonky camera stuff. But yeah, I could see that. That was always a it was a disturbing scene for me when I watched it as a kid, because that kind of real death is not something I watched a whole lot. Like I watched a
Mm-hmm.
lot of gruesome rated R stuff, but it was all fantastical. So Top Gun was that, that could actually happen, and it has actually happened, I guess.
Yeah. Um,
But
Also related to Goose's death, the scene where he goes and visits Carol with the box of things, I guess, to return to her. I
mhm,
found that as an adult a little underwhelming. And now I have to say, I've probably seen this movie two, 3 dozen times in my life. So it's going to lose some effect with that kind of repetition.
mhm,
However, it was, I don't know, it was a little odd. Like he walks into this room where she's just sitting there with the son. Uh, she says, he'd have flown if you weren't there, but he'd have hated it. They both look kind of misty. They hug and he leaves. And I don't know. I felt like the whole death of Goose was missing something, and I don't know what it was. But
okay,
maybe it was just all so fast. But something was missing. Like I didn't feel that emotional gut punch that is so, I guess, what you would expect to feel in that situation.
yeah. I th- I sort of agree. Like I was a little emotional during it, but I could have been more emotional, I guess. The only thing I can think of is that the way they shot that, I couldn't tell where Tom Cruise was in relation to Meg Ryan until he ended up in the same scene with her.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it was like he was at his house, and then they did a cut shot to Meg Ryan and the boy, and then they kept going back and forth, and that was a little confusing to me. Um, so maybe it was just the way they shot those scenes.
So one more thing regarding this topic. At the end of the film, Maverick looks at Goose's dog tags, and then he throws them into the ocean.
Sure.
Now I get that is symbolizing that he's moving on, that he's letting Goose go and he's moving forward with his life. But I'll be darned if that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Like, why would you do that? Is it just for the movie, do you think? Or was he really just saying, you know what? I don't need you anymore, Goose. Go away.
No, I don't think that was it. I think it was just I agree. I think you're right. It was a way to say I'm I still am your friend. I still care about you. I still will remember you, but if I hold on to your death and grieve, I won't ever be able to be a pilot.
Yeah. I mean, I get that
But
that's what they were saying. I don't
yeah,
know. That scene said a little weird with me. Like, why not
yeah,
give
it
them
was
to
weird.
Carol or the son so that they could have them? No, I'm
Yeah,
just going to throw him to the bottom of the ocean because he was my partner and I'm the only one who lets him go. I don't know. I just didn't like that part. I got what they were
but
trying to say, but I don't like the way they did it.
yeah, but you see, Matt, you get that cool silhouette of Tom Cruise on the boat throwing the
Now,
dog
you may
tags.
be on to something there. It was a cool looking shot, but dang. So I
Uh,
got one more thing on the plot, and then
all right,
we can move on to the next topic. But
okay.
all the things that I've said so far about this plot, I think I thought about them all, and I think I realized what the problem is with this film in terms of the plot. And that is, this film is trying to do way too much in a 2 hour time frame. I think they should have cut something and focused on other parts so we got a more complete story instead of this wide, everything's happening kind of thing. Because, I mean, if you think about it, this film runs, what, 1 hour, 50 minutes, including credits. So, in that time frame, which you take, what, 5 minutes off. So, in that time frame, we're covering Maverick's father's mystery, who he is and what happened in the past and what happened there. We've got this conflict with this other country, the enemy, that's going on, where we're at this, I guess, Cold War, where they have faster planes, but we have better pilots kind of thing. We've got the whole Top Gun school going on, where you've got this captain. I think he was a captain. Wasn't Maverick a captain?
I don't know.
I don't remember either. But you've got this pilot, we'll say, who's
Yep.
going into this best of the best school and competing, and he wants to be the best, but he's a rogue and he's an outlaw and he's competing with the best. You've got Goose dying. You've got Maverick having to get over that death. You've got a romantic arc with Charlie, the instructor, which is awkward and forced. You've got a rivalry in Iceman, this competition between the two of them. And then finally, you've got him getting back into active duty, but freaking out and having to get his head back into the right place so that he can help out Iceman.
Yeah.
It's just too much. And that's why everything feels rushed and a little off. I think,
Okay.
personally, they should have taken the whole romance with Charlie thing and just chucked it.
Interesting.
I think this movie would have been a lot better without it. They could have focused on the rivalry, the action, the character of Maverick could be more of a focal point. We don't need that romance in there. And I know it gives us Take My Breath Away in one of the most parodied love scenes in film history, but
Yeah.
I think it would be better without it.
Hmm.
The only other thing I could think of would be cutting out the entire military conflict outside of the school. That would work, but that wouldn't, I don't know, that would free up enough time because you're only talking about maybe 15 minutes with that, maybe 20. I'm
Sure.
not sure how long that ending sequence is, but
I would actually go another direction. I would leave the romance because, well, as I said, I thought it was very tension filled. And while it started out a little weird, I thought it got to a point where it was entertaining. Um, I would take out the father angle, the entire one.
yeah,
Like
that could go.
you could mention that his father was in the military. Okay. I would take out the military conflict. I would take out the Iceman rivalry
Oh, I wouldn't take
because
that out.
that wasn't even a rivalry.
I know, but it's what made the school engaging, I think, was the two best competing. You know, Mr. Iceman, who's the rules follower, by the book, perfect pilot, versus the guy who just has a feel for it, you know?
But they weren't competing. Iceman was the whole time. Iceman was like, "You need to do better, Maverick. Start following the rules. Stop being a jerk."
Well, of course, I mean,
And
that's
then
the conflict, right? It's
and
the
then Maverick would do his own thing, and then Iceman would be like, "Dude,
yeah,
seriously,
but
I'm gonna win."
Maverick would do his own thing, and he would do great. And while he might get a stern talking to when they talk about his flight, at the same time, everyone under their breath are like, "Oh my gosh, this is one of the best pilots I've ever seen." It's the natural talent with a feel for what he's doing, versus the guy who is on the nose by the book, every rule, never bends them. It's it's Picard versus freaking Shatner.
Yeah,
You know.
I guess. Except it's a rival. It's a rivalry in Maverick's head because it doesn't feel like Iceman is trying to, like, he's just doing his job.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the whole time I was like, is Iceman even? Originally, when I watched this as a kid, I was like, Iceman's a bad guy. Like, he's supposed to be the bad guy, but he's not. He's just a really good pilot that follows the rules.
Nope.
And
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This movie doesn't have a bad guy.
oh,
You
it
know, it,
doesn't.
it does set up Iceman as the bad
Maverick.
guy in a rivalry format, right?
Yeah.
But once Top Gun stops being an issue, the turning point is when Goose dies. So Iceman is our main antagonist until Goose dies. When that happens, Iceman instantly becomes a good guy, which he has been this whole time. He's just been a rival. But
Yeah.
he goes up and he's like, "I'm sorry about Goose Maverick," and he walks off. From this point to the end of the movie, the bad guy's Maverick. Maverick is the good
Yeah.
guy and the bad guy. It's
Yeah.
interesting like that. There's never
Mhm.
a real bad guy.
Yeah, that's true. And as we mentioned already, they didn't ever say who the enemy was, and so that kind of in your mind there is no enemy in that respect. Like it's just a bunch of planes.
Yeah, like I said, I just always assumed it was Russia, but I don't know.
And it probably was, but I don't think they ever
Or I
actually
guess would that be
mentioned
the
that.
Soviet Union at that point? 86. That was Soviet Union, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the okay, so plot like acting good enough, I would say, right?
Yeah. Plot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weak, but it's an action movie, so that's forgivable.
Mhm. Art direction and cinematography. I think this is really where the movie has some merit, I think. Uh, as I've mentioned before, all those aerial shots of the planes, uh, I can't offhand think of another movie like this that looks as good or has that good a camera work.
I mean, you got
Um,
what Iron Eagles, the Iron Eagle movies. They're about the only
yeah,
thing that really competes with this.
yeah, and I haven't seen those in forever. Uh,
And then what the
when a plane does a
Tomahawk,
barrel, huh?
the Tomahawk is that what it was? The for a
Yeah,
while, black
yeah.
helicopter movies were a thing too.
Black Hawk Down.
Well, that was later on, and not
Yeah,
really a
that was
helicopter movie, but you know what I mean.
yeah. The camera does these barrel rolls when the planes do barrel rolls. It can be really difficult to know what's going on, but one thing that the movie does is it has the pilots describe what they're doing,
Hmm.
and that is very, very, very helpful. But it also makes sense because that's what pilots would do anyway. Constant communication.
You get a lot of head-on shots where you're in the cockpit
Mm,
and you're looking at the pilots from the front of the airplane, and like an airplane will or an airplane. Listen to me. I don't know, a jet, a fighter will like zoom past, and you'll see the guy in the back seat. He's like looking behind himself, trying to find out where he's gone and trying to get a visual on him at all times.
yeah.
Um, it's cool. It's really cool, and like you're saying, it's got to be super hard to film a dogfight and make it competent to a viewer who's not versed in dogfights or plane terminology or things like that.
Oh yeah.
They really pulled it off, man. Like the dogfight scenes are so fun to watch.
I agree, and I still don't know a lot of the terminology they used, but within the context, I got it. Um, and for you live video watchers, I guess Matt's background is perfect when he acts like he's looking behind himself
Yeah,
to look.
that might have been intentional.
Oh, we got a MiG Owner 6. Yeah. So camera work during the dogfights and during the on the hangar on the when they're taking off, good stuff.
Hmm.
Everything on the ground is pretty standard camera work. I mean, there's nothing there that I can think of that. There's some good there's some good shots of him on his motorcycle.
Oh yeah, those are
Uh,
great.
yeah, and I
The only bad scene I can really think of in terms of cinematography, in my opinion, was at the end of the first date when he goes to take his shower. They're out on her
Mm-hmm.
porch, and she's like laying down on a couch, and they're listening to "Sitting on the Dock of the Bay"
Mm-hmm.
by Otis Redding.
Mm-hmm.
And that shot is framed a little weird. Like you've got Charlie laying down on the this outside couch, just kind of looking at him, and he's kind of in the foreground. And it's just a little, I don't know, something about it I didn't like. But every other shot is great. I have really nothing else bad to say about it.
That was actually what I took away from that one was she was ready to make a move. So she was looking all sexy on the couch. She had her shirt kind of unbuttoned, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But he heard that song, and so he's away from her, and that song has a memory that's,
Yeah, connected to
I
his
guess,
mom.
yeah. And so I don't know. It the way they set it up made sense to me, but
I get that because I mean he's kind of in the foreground, she's in the background. It's showing distance physically, as well
yeah,
as alluding to the distance that kind of just grew there in that song. But
yeah,
I don't know. I wish they could have done it better. Like maybe with some camera panning or something, because I think that's a still shot for that scene.
yeah, it is.
But I'm not. I don't know. It wasn't bad. It just felt a little awkward to me, enough that I noticed it, which is why I'm calling it out. Everything else I
Yeah.
thought was amazing. Well,
There's
amazing,
another,
strong. The plane scenes were amazing. The rest of the
yeah.
groundwork was okay.
I can't remember what's in the foreground, but there's a shot where it's setting sun. Do you remember that? It's really good. It's a really good shot. Um, just because the sun looks so
And I think
beautiful
there
in the
were a
background.
couple of those, right? There was a motorcycle scene, I think, with the sunset. I don't remember. Yeah, nothing's coming to my mind.
Yep.
I debated
Um,
trying to BS my way through that, John, but I've decided to come clean. I don't remember a sunset scene.
I get you. That's all right. Art direction is also really good. The attention to detail that they went to depict the military, from the planes to the hangar to the everything. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was
Well,
very good.
I mean, I figure most of it was authentic. Like,
Yeah,
surely
yeah,
they were actually filming on aircraft carriers and on military bases and such.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, you could tell that the people directing the planes, the pilots, everybody was an actual person in that profession.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I can't think of anything that just seemed out of place or inauthentic.
The only thing can really think of, and we're getting into visual effects here, but these categories kind of blend anyway, is the scene where Charlie is reviewing Maverick's flight in front of the class. And she's
Yeah.
standing at the front of the class, and they have some computer readouts with flight data on them. And they look rough. Now, this was 1986. So for
Uh-huh.
1986, it probably looked freaking like Star Trek. But coming back and looking at it now, I'm like, what is even on that screen? I just see a bunch of orange lines. So I want to point that out. It may have been good then, but now, not so much.
Well, so we can go ahead and move into visual
Mm-hmm.
effects, but I couldn't tell. Was that authentic?
I
I don't
have no
know.
idea. It might have been. So I hesitate to hate on it too much. It's just, man, I don't see how they were able to see anything in that computer screen.
Yeah. The one that got me was it looked like a bunch of polygons, and it was in the upper right hand screen,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "Is that even real? Is that
Yes,
something that they would?
that is exactly what I'm talking about. Is that screen?
Is that something they would read and be like, ah,
I mean,
now I
86.
get it."
Like 86 was not cutting edge technology. Computers were really just getting off the ground in 86. I mean, you were
Yeah.
still running the big old floppy disks and CRT monitors, monotone with maybe a few colors. Like, so I guess maybe that probably was. If you think military technology, probably that's realistic. But I don't know.
Yeah. Hard to say. Uh, the other part as far as actual special effects go, I mean, that was a prob. It that might have been a computer effect. Who knows? but then there were the times when they made the explosions from the missile shots, and
Mm-hmm.
those were edited a little. I could tell, I could see the seams
Well,
in
they kind of
those.
had the Star Wars effect, right? Where
Yeah,
you
you
go in on the
see.
plane and it's not really moving, and then it just explodes, and it's obviously a model that they blew up.
Uh-huh.
But it never bothered me.
Yeah. No, it didn't take me out of the movie, but I did notice it, and it's clearly clear that they had a shot of a fake missile or something shooting out from on screen to off screen, and then they would switch back to this still shot of a model plane or something, and then add an explosion effect,
Mm-hmm.
and it it was just funny more than anything.
I mean, I thought it looked awesome, but you're right.
Yeah.
It's you've got these jets like, and all of a sudden there's a shot of a jet like this, and it just goes, you know, yeah. It's
Yeah.
86. You got to cut them a little
86.
slack, and it's all practical. So
Yeah.
we always harp on
I
too much CG. No CG really, unless those computer graphics that were literally computer graphics. So I don't think that counts.
no. No, I'm not complaining. I'd rather have this than a whole crapload of CG effects.
It depends to me. It depends on how good the CG effects are.
Yeah. Another part of visual effects is costumes, I guess. I mean, that could go
Yeah,
into art direction or
not really
either
much to
or.
say there, right? They're military uniforms, so you
They
can't.
were authentic.
Yeah, I mean, you can't give creative props to anybody because they just used what was used. They probably
Yeah.
went to the
What
military and were like, "I need one for Tom Cruise, please."
what about playing beach volleyball in your jeans?
you know, Maybe. I didn't play a lot of beach volleyball at military schools in the 80s, so I can't speak to what the fashion was then. But
But you have worn tight fitting jeans before, right?
uh, I mean, I try not to, but it happens from time to time.
So you understand the limited mobility in a pair of tight fitting jeans.
Indeed, yeah, you're making a good point here. They should have cut them off, man. Worn some of
Yeah,
them tight cut right up to the
that was
balls
in, right?
shorts.
That was in
I
the
don't
80s.
know, but given some of the subtext of this movie, depending on your take of it, it might have fit right in. Which we'll get to that later.
Yeah. All right. Uh, let's move on to score.
Yep.
So the score is really just a bunch of Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone and Take My Breath Away by Berlin and a smattering of was it Sitting on the Dock of the Bay?
No, dude. There's lots of good songs in this. Lots.
There's the
You
Top
just
Gun theme,
Here. All
which
right. Here you go. Here you go. I got you. Ready? You got Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins, the iconic,
yep,
basically theme of this film, even though it's not really
the
the
one
theme.
they molded the entire score around, basically.
You've got Take My Breath Away by Berlin, which you mentioned.
Great song.
Classic 80s song, amazing. You've got Playing with the Boys, also by Kenny Loggins.
Okay.
Oh, hang out with the boys. All right, they're
Yeah.
in the volleyball scene. You've got Great Balls of Fire.
Uh-huh.
Granted, it's not the original artist recording, but it's still Great Balls of Fire. You shake my nuts and you rattle my brain. You've got You Never Close Your Eyes Anymore When I Kiss Your Lips.
Okay.
You've lost that love and feeling, John.
Yeah.
You've got Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. It's loaded. The soundtrack's loaded.
Okay. Two of those you mentioned, as you mentioned, were not sung by the original artist.
It's true.
And Tom Cruise cannot sing a lick. And so when he's singing You've Lost That Love and Feeling, it is horrible.
This is
It's not
also
even
true. I'm not going to debate that.
And Great Balls of Fire was not much better.
You shake my nuts and you rattle my brain.
Uh
It's a point. You've got a fair point there.
yeah. But I don't. I'm not knocking the score because I love Danger Zone and I could listen to that over and over and over, and they play it over and over and over in this movie.
Yeah, yeah, they
They
were proud of
even
that one.
they at one point they meld it into the score
Mm-hmm.
in an interesting 80s synth manner.
Mm-hmm. Lots of
Um,
interesting '80s synth in this.
yeah. And Take My Breath Away is good. Um, I just wanted it known that primarily you had Danger Zone, and then you had the Top Gun theme, and then Take My Breath Away, and those were the three main kind
They're
of
the
musical pieces.
they're the three iconic pieces. Yes,
Yeah,
depending on, I guess, how you feel about the movie. Because there are
yeah,
people who would say You've Lost That Love and Feeling is as iconic as Danger Zone in this movie.
yeah, yeah.
I agree with you in your choice.
Top
I'm
Gun
just
theme.
saying there
Yeah,
are some who would argue that.
yeah. But the Top Gun theme, like, it's one of those you hear it,
Oh, it's a
boom, Top
great
Gun.
theme. Great,
Yeah.
great theme. One of the best. Yeah,
Hmm.
and you're right. I mean, all I need to hear is that da da da. And I don't have to get that for it. I could just hear that boom. Chicka, 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 chicka.
Yeah.
Top Gun.
Uh, all right. The moment everybody's been
Wait,
waiting for.
wait.
Oh wait.
I have one more thing to say about the score.
Okay.
We've mentioned the popular songs in the score. We have not mentioned the actual score of the score. And I think that's bad.
Yeah, the Top Gun theme is the only score that.
There's other songs in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I, they're not even worth mentioning, really, because
It- yeah,
they.
they're 80s. It's like this 80s like synth guitar kind of sound, and it's so cheesy. And honestly, I think I mentioned not feeling that emotional gut punch when Goose died. I think the score was partly responsible for that. Maybe in the 80s that would have given me more feels, but in the 90s, or I guess we're in the 2020s, not in the
Yeah,
90s.
we're in 2021.
Um, Maybe Back to the Future's coming up on the list, but anyway, now it's just cheesy and bad. And so
Mm.
you've got this emotional point with 80s strings just beep, 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 beep. I'm just like not feeling it. I've lost that love and feeling.
You lost that love feeling. Yeah, I think they even themselves realized it, and they're like, we don't have anything. Okay, so we're gonna use Danger Zone, the one score that we have that's good, and some other well-known songs.
Yeah.
Spare sparingly on the guitar synth.
I think they had a lot and they did good with it, but the score was not good.
Yeah. Now, the moment everybody's been waiting for, the action. I guess we kind of already talked about
We
it.
have already talked about the action.
Yeah. I made a category for it, and we kind of already talked about it. But
We are at miscellaneous, though. So if there's anything you
yeah,
want to bring up, we can talk about that now.
some of that we already talked about too. But one thing is that I couldn't help but think of another Tom Cruise movie when I was watching this. Can you guess what it is?
Tropic Thunder.
No.
Um, Minority Report.
No.
Oh,
This leads me to believe that you do know the answer to this question.
the War of the Worlds remake.
No.
I don't know. What was it, John?
Yeah. Days of Thunder.
Oh, Days of Thunder. Victory Lane.
You've got a guy who's really good at something. He goes to a place to get better. He has a mentor. He has a love interest. Something bad happens while he's in his vehicle. He has to overcome it. And then at the end, he is victorious.
Yeah, it's pretty similar, isn't it? It's basically Top Gun with race cars.
Top Gun with cars, yeah. But I personally think Days of Thunder is better. But that's
But we
just me.
may have to watch it and
Oh, we're
discover that
certainly
for
going to watch it.
ourselves.
We are certainly going to watch it at some point.
It is very similar now that you mention that.
Do you have any
Yeah, I got
miscellaneous?
you know, I've got miscellaneous. I got miscellaneous
Mis-
coming out my ears, dangling all over my room. I'm just gonna grab one. Here's one right here. The pilot lingo. This is something that was confusing, but that I also respect this movie for doing. There's a lot of pilot lingo in this movie that is never explained to us whatsoever.
Yeah.
Um,
They assume you can get it via context.
I appreciate that. I don't know anything about it, and I didn't know what the heck they were saying. But I guarantee you, there are Air Force guys and pilots that do, and are like, "Oh, that's cool." It's like a nod to them. It's the nod to people who have that knowledge. And if you don't,
Yeah.
it gives you something. If you're really interested, you can go look it up and figure it out for yourself. A lot of movies handhold, and this one doesn't in that respect, and I appreciate it for it. So I think
Yeah.
it's cool that it's in there.
I agree. I like a movie that shows rather than tells. And if it sat there and tried to explain, well, this is what a MiG is, and this is how many G's it can do, and if you turn a barrel roll at the wrong angle, you might crash and burn, and blah blah. Like we don't need it. We know everything we need to know for this movie.
Right. So I got one more, and it's
Okay,
one that we have to talk about because I feel like it's an important part of this movie.
I think I have an idea of
You know
what you're
exactly
gonna
what it
say.
is. It's the gay subtext in this film.
Oh, I have another one then. If you're
So,
okay, go ahead.
um, in pop culture in particular, this movie is known for having a lot of gay overtones in it. You know, mostly referencing the famous volleyball scene where they're all shirtless or mostly shirtless. I think Goose has a shirt on, and the mini locker room scenes where they're wearing towels and things like that. Um, did you notice any of that, or did you pick up on any of that?
I did not, but I wasn't necessarily looking out for it.
Yeah.
Um, but go ahead.
So the writers have been interviewed regarding this topic, and they've spoke out as to their take on what happened here. And what they basically said was that when they wrote this film, that subtext was not intentional. They didn't put that in there. It's inferred by the viewers. But they also said that they were glad that it was inferred by the viewers because this film, like all films, good or bad, is essentially at its base a work of art.
Hmm.
And art is meant to be interpreted different ways by different people who have different experiences in life. And so they were happy to hear that some people were taking it that way and had no issues with it. Um, I personally, I can kind of see it, but it's all visual. I don't see a lot of it symbolically. Um,
Hmm.
I did read an interview where someone was mentioning Quentin Tarantino, who spoke up about this topic in this film. And to paraphrase what he said, he said basically that Maverick, Iceman, all of the male pilots essentially represent homosexuality, and they're pulling on Maverick, saying, you know, come with us, be gay, you know, this is your passion, this is where you belong. And then you've got Charlie, McGinnis's character, whose heterosexuality, saying, hey, come with me, be straight. And in that way, also I should note that McGinnis's character is named Charlie, which is a gender neutral name. Um, in that way, the movie kind of is symbolic of Maverick's struggle with his own sexuality. That feels like a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going to go out and say it. I'm going to humble myself a little bit here, John. I think Quentin Tarantino knows more about movies than I do.
I don't think so.
So, you
I
know,
think you're wrong.
maybe. I think at the end of the day, it really all just depends on your take and what you get out of the film. Um,
Yeah,
but I mean, it's there, and I feel like we have to mention it.
you are 100% correct that a movie is a work of art and interpretation is in the eye of the beholder. And so, just like I thought I didn't see the gay overtones and other people do. Like that's an interpretation that someone else has, that my interpretation is different. Some people will say that the romance relationship between Charlie and Tom Cruise is reprehensible and that it's outdated and, you know, maybe this movie shouldn't be watched, but I didn't think it was that extreme. So I think it's a good point to point out that people are going to watch this and take their own baggage into it and see different things, and it's okay if you don't see what I see.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Now, John,
Yes.
I want some butts. Get me some butts. And this is when you cue the spicy words.
We're not doing that yet.
Okay.
I have to talk about the sweat because I thought that's what you were going to talk about.
The sweat. Okay, the sweat.
Yeah. It's just a little thing, but Matt kept mentioning it. We actually watched this movie in 3D, by the way, in VR.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of sweat in this movie,
Not
and that's
quite.
really all.
Not quite no holds barred levels of sweat,
Right.
but there's a lot of sweat, especially in the beginning of the film. Everybody's wet.
Everybody is sweating, and it's
Moist,
probably fake sweat. Yeah, they're
you might say.
very moist. Moist in the face. Uh, that's it. That's all I wanted to mention was that there's a lot of sweat in this movie.
Yeah, and there's no. It's kind of odd. Like they'll just be sitting like out in the flight deck getting ready for a class, and it's just sweat pouring. I'm just like, man, like they had air conditioners in the '80s. You can turn it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Y'all are working off government budgets. Y'all can handle a little AC.
All right. Star ratings.
Star rating time.
Matt, what did you think of this movie, and what are you going to rate it?
I think it's clear. You know, I don't want to review too much, but I'll summarize. It's a great action flick. It's a lot of fun to watch, and by '80s action flick standards, it's one of the greats. That said, it's got a lot of issues. It's got a lot of flaws, and I think it tries to do way too much in the time it's got. I'm gonna come in with this one probably at. It's a tough decision. I'm gonna give this a 6, which feels
Okay.
low to me because I really do like this movie, but it's really got a lot of issues too. So I'm giving it a very fond 6, but a 6 nonetheless.
A fond 6. I'll make sure to mark that.
A 6 with a little heart on it or something.
Uh, yeah. I mean, I think this is a good action movie. I think it was very authentically representing of the military and the Air Force. Tom Cruise does a decent job. He has enough charisma to be a draw for the movie. Um, I think the romance angle started off a little rocky, but I got into it as I went on. Anthony Edwards is a great comic relief for the movie. That's a big plus. The score and music are good. Uh,
The music's
Thank
good.
God for Kenny Loggins.
The score is not good. Just the theme.
Well, the
Theme and music.
overall, the way the music was used was good.
Yeah.
The score itself, other than the main theme was not good.
Yes.
Um, so, but it's a great action movie. So I'm gonna say 5 out of 10 because it's just not.
I am shocked.
It's half good and half bad.
I gave Top Gun a higher rating than you did. Is this historic?
I mean, yes, because we've never reviewed Top Gun.
I almost gave this a 7, and you're coming in with a 5. I can't believe it, John. And it's a Tom Cruise movie.
I don't like everything. I mean, I like everything he does, but I
Oh,
don't love
apparently
everything he
not.
does. I don't love everything he
Apparently,
does.
you feel meh about some things he does. I love it.
Uh,
You give it that 5, John, and you be proud.
yeah,
In a way, you could say you gave Tom Cruise 5.
a high five. Yeah, it should be a 5 with a heart above it.
There you go. So I guess what we're really saying is I gave it a 7 and John gave it a 6, but we don't want to do that. So we're saying a 6
Yeah.
with a heart and a 5 with a heart. You're going to have fun putting that on
Uh,
the website.
yeah, I'll add some development time. Um, all right, Spice Awards, and my Google Doc isn't loading.
You tell me you don't remember?
Best actor. We got best actor, most
Most.
underrated performance, best scene, and best line. Excuse me. Best actor, Matt.
I went with Val Kilmer.
Okay.
His character didn't have a lot of screen time, but every time he was on scene, he was doing a great job. He played a really great pilot. He was convincing. He flew by the rules. He wasn't easily intimidated. He was a bad guy, but he wasn't a bad guy. I felt like all of his lines were delivered great. I loved his turnaround at the end when he and Maverick reconcile. When he's in the air, you can hear his arrogance, but you can also hear a little bit of just a little hint of insecurity up there in the air. And I don't know. I thought he was phenomenal in this. And of all the people in it, he was the one that grabbed me.
Interesting.
So I'm giving it to Iceman.
Uh, all right, Iceman. It is.
Iceman.
um, yeah, Val Kilmer's great, and usually in pretty much anything he does. I just, I don't know. It was like the movie was going, and then randomly Val Kilmer would show up and talk to Maverick for a little bit, and then he'd leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so
That wasn't his fault, though.
that's true. Not his fault. I went with Tom Cruise because he is the charismatic lead. He uh, dramatic moments he does well, as you mentioned. Um,
Yes.
I believed his struggle with Goose's death. I believed
Ugh.
he.
See, we
I,
have complete different opinions here.
that's good.
It is good, but it surprises. That's why I'm so surprised that I gave it a higher score than you.
Um, yeah, he's just as usual. He is a draw to go to the movie theater, and this was one of the first where he kind of exploded. Like he was the big dog. So I gave it to him. He was also believable as a pilot. He was seemed like he was very knowledgeable. He practiced his lines for saying all those military terms, which I can imagine would be hard to remember. But I picked Tom Cruise. So
Yeah, and I guess this was, in a way, one of his first leading roles. I mean, prior to this, his biggest movie was probably Risky Business, and behind that, Legend. But other than that, he didn't have a lot. He did Outsiders, but we've already covered
yeah,
Outsiders, and he was
he
kind
was
of a
barely
small
in that.
role in that. So
Yeah,
I'll give him that. I mean, this movie may have been what really blew him up. I
yeah,
mean, people knew him from Risky Business, and they knew him a little bit from Legend, but this movie, I think, is what really skyrocketed his career.
yeah, for sure.
Took it above the flight deck.
Yeah. But you can see why, I think. I mean, I guess it's a thing where if you like Tom Cruise and you like what he's doing, then you're going to be all in. If you don't necessarily care for Tom Cruise, then you're probably not gonna like anything he's ever done because he kind of he has a little more range than say Kevin Costner, but he kind of does similar things.
Mm-hmm.
So
All right. Well, there we go.
all right. Matt's pick was Kilmer, who played Iceman, and my pick was Tom Cruise, who played Peter Mitchell, aka Maverick. Best, or excuse me, most underrated performance.
Meg Ryan playing Carol. Her character was light, friendly, likable, and an overall joy to watch. She did a great job, I felt like, both with the happy scenes where she's hanging out with Goose and Maverick, as well as with the sad scenes when she's dealing with the death of her husband. I felt like she did that much better than Mr. Cruz did. Um, she's great in this movie. Every scene she's in, I'm watching her, and yeah, nothing bad to say about her performance at all here.
All right. I went with James Tolkien, who played Stinger, and I briefly mentioned him before, but he is the CO or XO or whatever you call them in the military. He's over Tom Cruise's character at the beginning, and he shows up at the end, and he's kind of this hard nosed, cigar smoking, sweating military leader, and he's a pretty cool character. He was in Back to the Future. He played Mr. Strickland, and I love that character in Back to the Future. He kind of has a similar role here. He's not as much of a hole, I guess, but sort of. Um, and I loved every time he was on the screen, so I picked him. All right, most underrated performance. My pick was James Tolkien as Stinger, and Matt's pick was Meg Ryan, who played Carol. Okay, I'm having to go back and forth between tabs because Google Drive won't open in this one.
So next up is favorite scene.
Favorite scene, Matt.
You know, I hate doing this because it feels so cliche, and maybe with this movie it's not. But for me, it's got to be that end sequence where Iceman winds up stranded fighting. I think it was 6 MiGs, and Maverick gets scrambled to go help him, and he's having trouble getting his head in the game, and he does, and they wind up taking them all down and winning. Uh, Man, that sequence is intense and it's awesome. And I've got to say something. It's a tribute to Iceman. Like he was up there alone versus 6 fighters for a long time. Uh, and you know, I felt bad because when they landed, everybody ran up to Maverick and hugged him. I was like, "What about Iceman? Dude, freaking survived in a dogfight 1-on-6 against faster, more maneuverable jets." While Maverick was up there going, "Talk to me, Goose. Talk to me." Iceman got screwed there, I think. But it's an action movie and he's the hero, so that's how it goes. Regardless, I loved that scene. It was tense, it was satisfying, it was well filmed, and I just loved it.
There's an alternate version of this movie where Iceman is the main character.
That would be awesome. Are you're joking, right?
Yeah, I'm joking.
Okay, that would be amazing. I would love to see this story told from his point of view. I'd love it. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I went with the opening action sequence. So we kind of bookended each other.
That was
Not
really
really.
good too. When it flips upside down and they're just missile locking and kind of Cold War dogfighting.
Yeah, I really like that. I can't remember, but I think we haven't seen Tom Cruise's face yet.
I mean, we have,
Until
but
after.
only with the helmet and the helmet
Correct.
and the mask on. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an entire dogfight sequence, in the air. We haven't seen our main character's full face yet. They're enacting a battle. Tom Cruise does the upside down MiG G-force 4Gs whatever maneuver, uh, while Goose takes a Polaroid of the other pilot.
What were you doing up there?
Um,
Communicating. Communicating. Just giving him the finger. The
it
bird.
was just such a yeah. It was really cool, and that's an important part of this movie actually is the cool factor,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a lot of reason why many people probably went to see this movie because everyone's acting cool. Um,
Yeah.
and that says a lot for entertainment value and having fun at the movies. So, all right. Favorite scene? Matt's pick was the last dogfight. My pick was the first dogfight. Final category in the Spice Awards: Best Line.
This is a tough one. There's a lot of good lines in this movie. A
Mm-hmm.
ton. Um, I wound up just kind of picking one that I really liked, but it's almost too hard to choose an actual best line, in my opinion. So the one that I went with was Goose talking to a character named Slider. And Slider, I think, was Iceman's wingman.
Yes.
And he looks at him and goes, Goose, whose butt did you kiss to get in here anyway? And Goose replies, the list is long but distinguished. And then Slider replies, yeah, well, so is my Johnson. I thought it was great. It was funny. It made me laugh, and it really kind of showed the rivalry slash camaraderie between the pilots at the school. I just thought it was a really good line.
Yep. Yep. That was a funny one. Yeah, there's so many. There's so many lines that are iconic. First off, but then on top of that, there's just some really good quotes that aren't necessarily iconic, but are good within the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went with the so Maverick. It's at the beginning of the movie. Maverick is landing the plane. His other co-pilot is having an issue, and he is freaking out, and he can't do anything. And so Maverick is about to land the plane. He's on the runway, about to be caught by the cable, and he uh, hits the gas and goes back to help his buddy. And when he gets back down, Stinger, who is in charge, uh, gives him an earful,
Mm-hmm.
and he says, Maverick, you did an incredibly brave thing. What you should have done was land your plane. You don't own that plane, the taxpayers do. Son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash. You've been busted. You lost your qualifications as section leader 3 times, put in hack twice by me, with a history of high speed passes over 5 air control towers and 1 admiral's daughter. And that was just uh, a great moment.
It is a great line.
And when he's saying your ego is writing checks your body can't cash, that's a line I always remember from the movie. Um,
Solid.
yep. Okay, best line. Matt's pick was "So is my Johnson." I'm just gonna paraphrase. And my pick was "Your ego is writing checks your body can't cash." That whole line. Hey Matt,
Yes, John.
did you know I guess the internet just isn't working in this tab across the board.
Hmm.
Technical difficulties. 1 second. Did you know Anthony Edwards is the only actor who didn't vomit while in the fighter jets?
Hmm. I did not. I don't
Now
know
you
that I
do.
needed to know that. So there was a death in this movie that wasn't Goose, a
Ooh.
real life death. A test pilot by the name of Art Scholl was killed. He was 54. He was flying a plane, which was one of the camera planes, and the plane went into a flat spin, similar to what happens in the movie. He wasn't able to recover, and he plunged into the ocean. The exact cause of what happened or what went wrong and caused the spin was never determined, and his body was never recovered. Um,
Wow.
the movie was dedicated to him in his honor. I don't know. I didn't
That,
catch that in the credits, but it was probably in the credits at some point.
that's crazy. Val Kilmer did not want to be in this film, but he was forced to by contractual obligations. Obviously, it became one of his more iconic roles.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely did.
Hmm.
So in the beginning of the film, when Tom Cruise goes up to Charlie to try to woo her with his famous song, she's seen with an older man at a table talking to this older guy. That older guy was Viper in real life. He was a Navy pilot. He was a Top Gun instructor, and he's famous for having shot a MiG down during the Vietnam War. He had that cameo role, but his main role on the film was as a technical consultant to make sure that they were saying things that made sense and such.
So that tension that you felt between Maverick and Iceman, it's not just good acting.
Iceman.
Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer kept their distance from each other actually in real life and never socialized.
Tom Cruise is a man of great stature when it comes to acting in Hollywood. He is not, however, a man of great stature when it comes to height. Tom
That's
Cruise
right.
comes in at about 5'7" tall. Uh, Mrs. McGinnis, who played Charlie, is 5'10" tall, and they did not want her to appear taller than Tom Cruise, and so Tom Cruise wore lifts on his shoes during many of the scenes in which they are sharing.
Makes sense. I think he's done that a lot throughout his career.
Mm-hmm.
All of Maverick's stunt flying in the film was done by Scott Altman, who later went on to become an actual astronaut.
Hmm, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Meg Ryan and Anthony Edwards had some pretty good on-screen chemistry, I would say. Would
Yeah.
you agree with that?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I think they agreed
Yep.
also because after this movie, they started dating and became an item.
Wow. Some of these I always question, but this film was inspired by an article in the May 1983 issue of California Magazine about the U.S. Navy's Top Gun School. So, based on a magazine article.
This was the highest grossing movie of 1986. The winner.
Nice. Tom Cruise had never ridden a motorcycle until this film. He went to the House of Motorcycles in El Cajon, California to learn. And if you know about Tom Cruise, you know he's a big motorcycle rider. Like any of the movies he does, I guess after Top Gun, he is actually doing the motorcycle riding. And he has a lot of motorcycles in real life.
This movie made a bit of a splash in the 1987 Academy Awards. It was nominated for 4 Oscars, of which it won 1 Oscar. The nominations were for Best Music Original Song, Best Sound, Best Film Editing, and Best Effects slash Sound Effects Editing. Which of
Mm-hmm.
those do you think it won? I'll
Best
give you a hint.
editing?
The answer will take your breath away. That's right, it won for
Ah,
Best Music Original Song.
that's good. There is a sequel to Top Gun. Hasn't come out yet, but it's called Top Gun Maverick, and it will be out sometime this year, starring Tom Cruise.
Oh, you ready for this? This is a good one.
Okay.
So you know how I mentioned I wish they had kind of cut the love scene out, the whole romance
Mm-hmm.
arc. Well,
Mm-hmm.
apparently they showed this film to a test audience, roughly like 5 months or so before the movie came out, just to see what their opinions were.
Mm-hmm.
And that audience complained that there was no romance in the film. And so, to accommodate that audience's reactions, after production had already wrapped, so this was like 5 months after they were done filming and had edited it and were done, they
Mm-hmm.
got Kelly McGillis and Tom Cruise to come back and film the relevant scenes for their romance arc. In that time, McGillis had lost like 16 pounds and had dyed her hair. So one of the if you notice the love scenes, the up close love scenes, which are most of what they filmed, are tight shots, with one exception, and that is the elevator scene. The scene where McGillis has a hat and glasses on. And if you notice, I did notice this, but I didn't say anything about it. She looks different in that scene. And I just
Right.
attributed it to the hat and the glasses. Well, the reason for that was because she had lost 16 pounds and her hair was a different color. So they had it bunched up and tied back behind her with a hat over it so you couldn't tell.
Interesting.
And originally that wasn't in the movie.
Thanks, focus group. On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 57% by critics and an 83% score by audiences of over 250,000 ratings. The critics' consensus is, though it features some of the most memorable and electrifying aerial footage shot with an expert eye for action, Top Gun offers too little for non-adolescent viewers to chew on when its characters aren't in the air.
Hmm. So I've mentioned previously that Top Gun was the highest grossing film of this year, 1986. There were second and third place were also really big movies. One of them we've done on this podcast before, Crocodile
Hmm.
Dundee.
Ah, yeah.
Number three was Platoon.
Another good movie.
Mm-hmm.
Military movie.
Good year for movies.
Let's see. Some of the actors who portrayed F-14 crew members received backseat rides in the F-14, and several of the scenes which appear in the film were filmed with the actors in the air.
Hmm. I'd be remiss if I didn't give one of these facts. The role of Charlie was one that had a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of variety in choices of who they wanted to play that character. It was offered to Tatum O'Neal. It was offered to Jodie Foster. It was offered to Daryl Hannah. It was offered to Sarah Jessica Parker, Diane Lane, and also Linda Hamilton. All of them turned that role down. They also wanted Carrie Fisher, but I don't think she was actually auditioned and was considered. So a long list of very famous actresses for that role, and a lot of people said no, which had to be frustrating for the producers.
Tony Scott, who directed this film, uh, he has directed other films such as Beverly Hills Cop 2, Days of Thunder, Last Boy Scout, Crimson Tide, Enemy of the State, Spy Game, Man on Fire, Deja Vu, and a number of other films, but a lot of really well-known movies. Well-regarded, well-known movies.
Before this movie had a director, there were several other directors chosen. Two, in particular, that I feel like might have made this movie a little bit different than it was made are John Carpenter, which would have made for an interesting film, I think. And are you ready for this one? David
Okay.
Cronenberg.
Oh my God.
They both turned it down. They offered the director's job to both of them, and they both said no. Can you imagine if David Cronenberg had made Top Gun?
It would have been really morbid and weird.
Probably a little different feel to it than what we got.
Got any more?
I think that's probably enough. We've been going for a bit.
All right. Man, my computer is hopefully it's going to make it to the end of this episode.
We're almost there.
Yeah, I gotta find. Hopefully, I can open. Hey, I can actually open it. All right, that'll be our episode for tonight. You can join us in 2 weeks when we will review the 1974 action thriller Towering Inferno.
Woo! I'm excited for
Starring,
that one, John.
yeah,
It's gonna be a
starring
hot
Mr.
movie.
Steve McQueen. I'm gonna get up in the tower, and yeah, it's gonna be hot.
Dang right.
Great. Starring Mr. Steve McQueen. We would love it if you'd subscribe to the CinemaMen podcast and leave us a review. Head on over to cinemamenpodcast.com to check out new and old episodes. We always love to hear from listeners, so if you have a suggestion or just want to give us your take on a movie, email us at feedback@cinemamenpodcast.com or check us out on Twitter at twitter.com/cinemamenpod. Thanks for listening.
And
All right.
cut. All right. I don't feel like that's our best one, but hopefully it's okay.
That's all right. The magic of editing.
Mm-hmm. So do we want to do the Cinemini with your computer issues? Or do you want to try to do that another night? What are you thinking?
Oh, yeah, we can. It's just Chrome. Like, it was freezing, or at first it wouldn't let me open any tabs or go to any web pages. So I opened a private tab, and that was working. And then Chrome froze. And so I reopened it, and everything seems fine.
I got you. So what would you say is the actual topic that we're discussing tonight? Like, I know it's Tom Cruise, but is it just like a discussion of Tom Cruise films, or?
Yeah, Tom Cruise movies.
Okay.
And we just picked a few.
Yeah, playing with the boys. Yeah.
Let's see here.
All right. Let me go over here. Let me go tell you, drag you over. I'm uploading my files.
Alrighty.
Uploading. Uploading.
Went to the Lost Pizza.
How'd you find it?
Compass?
All right, it's uploaded. Yeah, you have that place right by y'all, don't you?
Yeah. First time we've been, though.
We
Good.
go a lot. There's one right next to us also.
There's so many pizza places. It's hard to remember Lost Pizza.
All right. I am hitting record. Now, I see my waves. I'm good. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'm ready when you are.
Alrighty. Cinco.
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Boo. Hey, you did it.
Every time. Are you ready?
Everton. Yep.
Hello and welcome, everybody, to another Cinemini, part of the CinemaMen podcast. I am Matt Hurdle. My co-host is John Murphy, and we're
Hello.
here for our third ever Cinemini. For those of you who have not heard one of these before, these are short form, 30 minutes or less, just discussions between John and myself, and they are unedited. So we're not cutting anything. We're not messing with the files. We're not adding in any audio. They're just discussions between myself and John regarding a topic. And that topic is almost certainly revolving around movies in some way. Although, we reserve the right to take a detour every now and then.
Yeah.
Tonight, our topic is somewhat related to the film we just reviewed, which is Top Gun. And that topic is movies of Tom Cruise. So, a little bit of background here. First of all, you should know neither John nor myself have any kind of real tie to the movie industry. We are both just really passionate fans. We love movies. We love talking about movies. And we thought, why not make a podcast where we talk about movies together. And so here we are. So if you're listening, we want you to know we really appreciate you being here. Don't expect any professional opinions here. It's just talk between two guys who love movies. So we hope you like it, and we're glad you're here. That said, Mr. John over here has.
Yes.
Well, we'll just say we'll save the social medias to the end of the podcast. John,
Yes.
hit me with some of that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful,
Bean footage.
opinionated thought banter on the movies of Tom Cruise.
Ah, yes. Yeah, so I've picked out a few movies from Tom Cruise's oeuvre. You like
Oeuvre.
that one?
I've never heard
Yep.
that one. Oh, one more thing I
Look
need
it
to
up.
point out before you
Oh,
go too far.
okay.
It should be noted, John is a pretty big Tom Cruise fan. I myself am kind of hit or miss with Tom Cruise. Some of his stuff I like, some I haven't. So some of these movies I haven't even seen that he's going to mention, but I'm still going to talk about them because that's why I'm here. But that's why I'm turning this over to John, because this is a lot more his area of expertise than it is my own.
Yeah, so again, I just picked out a few movies that I thought were notable to talk about, and we'll just go down through them and until we run out of time, and we'll just give our opinions, and I'll give some little factoids about the movie.
Sounds good.
Uh, but the first one is a great one, I think. Edge of Tomorrow,
I
starring
have
Tom
seen that one.
Cruise.
That is a good one.
Yeah, so this is the sci-fi movie, Edge of Tomorrow. The original title, or the alternative title, was Live, Die, Repeat, which I think is a better, more unique title. But they, obviously for Hollywood and marketing reasons, they changed it to Edge of Tomorrow. Stars Tom Cruise, of course, and Emily Blunt. And it's kind of a Groundhog Day take on a sci-fi movie where he's living the same day over and over and over again and battling these aliens. And I won't spoil any of the movie other than that. But what did you like this movie?
Oh, I loved this movie. Yeah, I thought it
Yeah.
was imaginative. It had great action in it. It had good comedy in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite movies of his. It kind of has some Avatar vibes to it a little bit, in that it's alien and all this. It's also got some Starship Trooper vibes to it. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it still comes off as a pretty unique film, especially with the whole time loop thing that's going on. Usually, time travel as a gimmick, I'm not a big fan of. But occasionally, a film does it and they do it right. And this is one of the films I think that does it right. Everything gets explained. You find out what's going on, how it's happening. And it's really interesting seeing him iterate through this big day, trying to get towards some sort of a conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I love this movie. I'm a sucker for Groundhog Day movies. Groundhog's Day is one of my favorites. This one's great. There's a one called Palm Springs that just came out with Andy Samberg. It's magnificent. I just like that take, living the same day over and over and over again and being able to evaluate what you've done and try different things and see the result. It's pretty cool. This movie made about $370 million at the box office on a $178 million budget.
Not bad.
So it did really well. I think critically it was well received. 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. So pretty good. Oh, and that was what year was that? 2014.
2014. Yeah.
So
It's good to see that in
we
2014 he still has some pretty solid action chops too. I mean, he's still cranking out action movies today in 2021.
Yeah. The Mission Impossible franchise, and I want to mention this before I don't get to. Tom Cruise is the hardest working actor in Hollywood to this day. He does all of his stunts He works all the time, and I think that's one of the draws to his movies is when you see him do something, he's actually doing that thing. There's not a stunt double. Uh, I think in one of the Mission Impossible movies, he held his breath for, I don't know, 15 minutes or something. Like he trained his body to do that.
Hmm.
He's he's injured himself several times. He's basically Jackie Chan.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but that's why I respect him. That's one of the reasons I respect him is because he's willing to sacrifice his body to something he loves doing.
Hmm.
It's not just about a paycheck for him. I don't think.
I didn't know that about him. That does raise the respect a bit, I have to say.
Yep.
Not that I
Uh,
expect actors to sacrifice their body. I don't want to come
no, I
across as
mean
that, but the fact that he
no.
does gives him a certain amount of respect in my book.
Well, it just to me it shows that he's not just wanting to make money. Like he truly believes and enjoys what he does.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wouldn't do that. Well, let's go back to 1988 with a movie called Rain Man.
A
A little
very,
movie
very
called Rain
famous
Man.
movie. And John, I
Yep.
have a confession revolving around this movie that you already know because we had a previous discussion, but I have to come clean on this.
Okay.
I've never seen this movie.
Boom, boom.
I know. I've seen clips of it, and I know it's a famous movie, and I know it's very well loved, but I've just never sat down and watched it.
I think you'd like it.
I think I would
It's a
too,
pretty yeah.
honestly.
It's a pretty well-regarded movie. It's a movie about uh two brothers. Tom Cruise is one of them. Dustin Hoffman is the other. Tom Cruise is this businessman, or I forget what he is specifically. Um, but he has this brother who has he's an autistic savant, so he has autism, but he's extremely smart. He just has these things that he does that um, are can be challenging or difficult, and so it's about his brother taking care of his other, or about Tom Cruise taking care of his brother and the struggles of trying to figure out how to live with someone who's autistic and how to love someone who's autistic. Um, and it's a pretty good tearjerker, dramatic film, and I like it a lot.
Cool.
This was 1988, like I said. This one was a big one. The budget for this one was 25 million, and it made 354 million dollars at the box office.
Ooh.
So pretty big deal. That will definitely be a CinemaMen movie at some point.
Mm.
Uh, we've got A Few Good Men, 1992.
Another classic movie.
Yeah, this was Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson, Demi Moore, Kevin Bacon, Kiefer Sutherland. Huge cast. Uh, this was Rob Reiner, I think. Yeah, directed by Rob Reiner.
Mm.
A military slash court drama movie involving some sort of crime that took place in the military, and Tom Cruise is a lawyer that's trying to figure out what happened and determine where the fault lied. Um, again, like $40 million budget, it made $243 million. This is a pattern with Tom Cruise movies. This is
Yeah.
the reason he is making movies still, and why people want him to make movies.
He definitely makes money. Regardless of how you feel about him, he makes money.
Yeah, and you've seen this one, right?
Yes, I have.
Would you like it?
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah, the acting's great across the board. In my opinion, it's one of his best acted movies. The story's great. It's a wonderful movie. Everybody should see it.
And Jack Nicholson, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so those are the three that I mainly wanted to talk about, but we have some honorable mentions. And I definitely want to talk about this one, Days of Thunder, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, but also one of my favorite Tom Cruise movies.
It's a great movie. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. This was a couple of years ago, or a couple of years prior to A Few Good Men, 1990, and it is, as we figured out recently, this is Top Gun with cars.
Hmm.
It is a NASCAR movie where Tom Cruise plays a character named Cole Trickle, and he's a stock car driver or something. Like he's not a NASCAR driver, but he gets into the NASCAR driving scene, and he has to figure out how to drive uh, those types of cars.
Yeah, he
And
winds
he's
up
got
running
this,
a time trial in a stock car, and he just like smokes it.
yeah,
And so they rush him into the pro scene.
I'm gonna drop the hammer. And he's got this mentor or this guy that's kind of helping him out, who's played by Robert Duvall. There's a love interest with Nicole Kidman, who he ends up marrying in real life. And so, yeah, you've got a young, what was his name? I can't think of his name now. But anyway, great movie, good action movie. This one, $60 million budget, box office, $158 million. Uh, yeah, I just like the overall feel of this movie. The music is good. I'm not even a NASCAR fan. I'm not a car driving fan, but this movie makes that whole field interesting
Yeah,
and fun to watch.
you don't have to be. I found with any
Yeah,
good sports movies, you don't have to necessarily be a fan of the sport to enjoy the story around it.
yeah. However, after I did watch this movie for the first time, I started watching NASCAR for a little bit, because I was more interested in it after that. I think this is another movie you haven't seen, Matt, but Jack Reacher, which is a 2012 action movie starring Tom Cruise.
Yeah, correct. I have not seen this one.
This is based on a book called One Shot, and there's a series of books involving Jack Reacher, the character, and so I guess um, Tom Cruise or whoever made the movie decided that they liked that character and they wanted to make them into a movie series. There's two entries in the series so far, and Tom Cruise plays Jack Reacher, and it's sort of Mission Impossible esque, but it's a little more grounded, less fantastical than Mission Impossible is, and that's kind of why I prefer it over Mission Impossible because it's uh, a little more real, kind of like a Jason Bourne kind of thing.
Hmm.
Jack Reacher has the tools to do what he needs to do. He's obviously capable, and tough, and he can fire a gun and stuff, but he's not doing crazy things necessarily. This movie was budgeted at $60 million and it made 218.3 million. Uh,
Boom.
so yeah, and there was a sequel a few years later. And then last one I want to mention, and then if you want to mention any, feel free. But Minority Report, we can't not talk about Minority Report.
Mm.
Um, this is a sci-fi movie in 2002, directed by Steven Spielberg, and it starred Tom Cruise and Colin Farrell. Uh, Basically, the whole concept is what would happen if you had a police department that could predict that you were going to cause a crime before you even knew you were going to do it. And it's all about that whole concept. And one of the people who uh, is on that task force ends up being convicted of a crime that they haven't committed yet, and how he deals with that. And just a really great concept, a great movie. Received nominations all over the place from the Academy Awards and Saturn Awards. This movie made $358 million on a $102 million budget.
Hmm.
So, do you like this movie?
I guess they're not all successes.
No, yeah, that one's an amazing success.
Wait, say that again.
It made $358 million
Oh, I
on a
missed the
$102
300.
million budget.
I thought you said it made 58 million, and I was like, really? Okay, 358. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
would.
don't remember that movie very well.
Okay,
I saw it. I watched it in the movie theater, but I don't remember much about it. I may have to revisit that one. I remember thinking that the idea was really cool, um, but I also was maybe not mature enough to be ready for some of the themes that it explored, and was probably just looking for a cool action movie at the time. So
sure.
that one's ripe for a rewatch for me.
Excellent. I'm making a list, by the way.
There you go.
And I wish I had had the forethought to look up all of his box office takes and see if there's been any movie that hasn't made money for him.
I'm sure.
Um,
There's got to be at
there
least
has to be.
one.
And the one movie that I would really like to talk about, but I've never seen it, but it's The Mummy, the new Universal movie that he did.
Hmm.
And I don't. That one was really poorly reviewed. Probably one of his worst movies. But I just haven't seen it.
You know, they have a really hard time making good mummy movies.
Yeah,
The Brandon Fraser ones were okay, but they weren't well received critically either. Typically, the first one
the
was
first Mummy is great.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Brendan Fraser.
Hmm. But we digress. I
Yes.
only have one
So
movie that I want to bring up,
okay,
and it's probably my favorite Tom Cruise movie. Although I have to think about that a little more. But I'm going to say for now, at least, it's my favorite Tom Cruise movie. And that's the War of the Worlds remake
yeah.
that came out in 2005.
Hmm.
I went into that just kind of expecting a mediocre action film, honestly. And I was blown away. I love that movie. To still today, I love that movie. I love the feeling that's created by the alien attack. I love the survival aspect that we see with Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning. And man, I just really, really like that movie. Uh,
Yeah, it's great.
One thing Tom Cruise does well, I think undeniably, is action and drama. I mentioned this in our Top Gun review. I think when it comes to silliness, comedy, joy, things like that, I think he struggles a little bit. But when it comes to action and drama, he's amazing. And man, he really pulled out all the stops for that one. I
Yeah,
love it. And that movie also did very well. It had a budget of $132 million, and the worldwide gross on that film was $603 million. So yikes,
yeah.
that's some dollars.
He puts the butts in the seats.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's. I was debating between talking about that one and Minority Report, and I went with the other one. But yeah, I love World of Worlds.
And going into a remake,
They,
I just expected it to be mediocre, but it was great.
yeah, I like the way they portrayed that family dynamic too, with
Hmm.
Tom Cruise kind of being the deadbeat dad, uh, with the son and his daughter, and that they're struggling to find their relationship all throughout all this crap going on. Um, really good stuff. Any others that you want to mention?
That was the only one I really had, other than his. Well, okay, I can think of two more that I could mention. One is The Last Samurai.
Mm,
A very solid movie there. Um, really, really enjoyed that film. And then I wanted to mention, well, I guess we should just throw some out there. Um, Magnolia, famous film that he was in. Jerry
yeah.
Maguire,
Yep.
another super famous film that he did. Eyes Wide Shut, a little strange, but still pretty good. Born on the 4th of July, Far and Away. Just a huge list of hits that he's got that
Yeah,
just steadily just bringing in that money.
for sure. Uh, I guess some tidbits about like the man himself. He's 58, but you wouldn't know it by watching his movies. And that's the big joke is like Tom Cruise never ages,
Mm-hmm.
and people want to know how he does it. um,
Moisturizer and hair dye would be my guess.
yeah, dieting, exercise, plastic surgery, hair dye, and moisturize. Um, he famously is a supporter of Scientology, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's uh, many years ago he went a little crazy on Oprah, if you remember that, and his career kind of took a hit at that point. But he recovered. Um, and yeah, he's a hard worker, I would say. He's been active in acting since 1981,
Career
and
man.
yeah,
He's got his
he'll
pension.
be acting. He'll be acting until he dies, I assume.
All
So,
right. Anything else you want to bring up?
I don't think so. Other than just for those who don't like his movies, I would just say maybe give him another shot. And you don't have to like him, but I think he brings a certain chemistry, and he's a really interesting action star. As Matt said, he's not done a lot of comedic roles. Tropic Thunder is really the only
And he was actually
straight
really.
comedy.
That is the only time I can think of that he really did something like that well.
Yeah.
And it was because he was playing a straight man, basically. He was this kind
Yeah, he
of
wasn't trying to be
hard
funny
guy,
necessarily.
but it was so ridiculous. And the fact that it was Tom Cruise is what really made it so funny. So I'll give
Yeah,
him props. I laughed pretty hard when he showed up in that film.
yeah. But yeah, that's it.
All right.
Tom Cruise is cool.
So there you go. Words from the mouth of John Murphy here, if you have any doubts. That's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you guys for listening. We will have a new episode 1 week from today. Uh, Today being when this podcast came out.
Hmm.
Um, and we will be live again in 2 weeks, which will be July the 6th, where we'll be talking about the Towering Inferno and also doing another Cinemini. So we want to say thank you so much for tuning in. If you're live, thank you so much for listening. If you're on the podcast or watching, if you're on YouTube after this is premiered, we really appreciate you guys being here. And we'd love to hear some of your thoughts on the matter. What are some of your favorite movies? What do you like him? Do you hate him? What's he good at? What's he bad at? We'd love to hear. So let us know. Speaking of which, you might be wondering, well, how do I let you know? Well, listen to John, who's going to give you the deets.
Yeah. If you want to tell us what your favorite Tom Cruise movie is, or what his worst movie is, or why he's terrible, or why he's awesome, you can email us at feedback@cinemamenpodcast.com or hop on Twitter at twitter.com/cinemamenpod and send us a tweet. We'd love it.
All right. So there you have it, folks. Thanks very much for listening, and we will see you next Friday.
See ya.
Boop. All right.
Savey save.
Everyone on the live stream, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you being here also. We're glad you're here as always. And as we just said, we'll be live again in 2 weeks. Always right around at 8:30 on a Tuesday night, every other Tuesday night. And we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll talk to you later.
Yeah. See you later.